Despite the fact that this model was positioned by the manufacturer as a brutal car for men, its paintwork is very delicate, which is why it quickly occurs all sorts of scratches and chips. Painfully tolerates operation in our realities, and chrome becomes cloudy as it swells after 3-4 winters. As for the protection of the body from corrosion, it is satisfactory, thanks to which the metal resists the onslaught of the red disease well. However, there are still a couple of weaknesses here. Rust most quickly affects open areas of the metal. If the chips are not timely tinned, the appearance of mushrooms in these places is inevitable. In instances operating in megacities, from exposure to reagents, rust pockets can also be found in hidden parts of the body, on the welding seams at the ends of the doors, in the corner of the additional brake lights, in the drainage holes, on the thresholds at the points of contact with the door seals. It also resists quite badly the onslaught of red disease and the trunk lid. The fastest metal begins to bloom in the area of the license plate and around the glass seal. Another disadvantage of the fifth door is weak gas stops, which, with the advent of cold weather, do not always cope with its weight. The problem is solved by installing reinforced stops. The owners of the Nissan X-Trail Т31 also blame the poor quality of the original windshield, poorly resistant to mechanical stress. Often, when driving, a creak can be heard in the front of the car. These sounds are made by an aerodynamic lining under the windshield. To eliminate the defect, the lining can be put on a sealant or an additional sealant can be glued. On many instances, over time, problems appeared in the operation of the wipers. Bad tender. Reason: the wiper trapezoid bushings rusts, wear out. Treatment: replacing the bushings. If it is intact, it will be enough to put a washer of the required diameter under it. Due to the unsuccessful geometry of the body, the rear bumper often suffers while driving off-road, the replacement of which will significantly hit your pocket, about 150 cu. Unpleasant surprises can also be presented by door handles. Cables fly off due to weak fastening. Most often, the problem occurs in winter on restyled copies. A feature of the trunk is an organizer hide on the main floor, in which you can hide the barbecue, fishing rods, and other necessary things. The disadvantage of this floor is that if you need a spare tire, you will have to work hard to disassemble this organizer. The Nissan X-Trail Т31 powertrain line includes 2 atmospheric force with a volume of 2.0 MR20DE 140 horsepower and 2.5 liters QR25DE 168 horsepower, and a 2-liter turbo diesel of varying degrees of forcing M8R 150 and 133 horsepower. The main problem of gasoline engines is increased oil appetite, more than 0.5 liters per 1000 kilometers. Consumption of more than 1 liter per 1000 km as a rule is the result of the occurrence of piston rings. This trouble appears on a run of over 150,000 km. Repair costs almost $500. Replacement of rings and valve stem seals. The timing chain stretches closer to 150,000 km. The fuel level sensor, there are 2 of them, one on the fuel pump, the second is installed separately. And ignition coils are also not famous for their reliability. The disadvantages include a rather high fuel consumption. When installing HBO, it is necessary to adapt the motor to work on gas, increasing the thermal clearances of the valves and installing other glasses. If this is not done, after a short run, the valve seats and the valves themselves will burn out. The weakest unit is prone to overheating, so at least once a year it is necessary to clean the coolant radiator. Important: overheating often causes wiring of the mounting surfaces of the cylinder block and head. It is also worth noting the unreliability of the thermistor, which is built into the mass airflow sensor. If the sensor malfunctions, incorrect data is transmitted to the engine control unit, most often overestimated by 50%, due to which it limits the fuel supply, which leads to a significant decrease in traction. When replacing candles, it is advisable to use the torque wrench, since due to the tightness of the partition separating the candle's wells from the coolant jacket, there is a high probability of cracks. Recommended tightening torque 15-20 nanometers. A fairly common ailment is oil leakage through the oil pan seal and antifreeze through all possible and impossible channels. Other common troubles include unstable idling, solved by cleaning the throttle, a small resource of the rear support, increased noise, valve adjustment is required, and the whistle of the generator belt. In a 2.5-liter engine, the phase regulator, oil pump, and thermostat are not reliable. Quite often, due to the loss of tightness, oil leaks appear. The valve cover gasket also has to be changed. If you do not periodically clean the nozzles and the throttle, over time the engine will start to work unstably. Through it, speed floats. Another problem with this unit is unsuccessful software. Because of this, the motor can vibrate strongly. The trouble is solved by flashing the ECU. It is worth noting that this engine is afraid of low temperatures and is nutty in severe frosts over -20 degrees. In addition, driving on an unheated engine in severe frost leads to accelerated wear of the catalyst with the ingress of destruction products, ceramic dust, into the cylinder. The reason is that fuel overflows, which burns out in the catalyst. A diesel unit is the most interesting option for purchase due to its reliability, efficiency, and excellent dynamic characteristics, but unfortunately, in the secondary market, a Nissan X-Trail with such an engine is very rare. Of the weak points of the unit, one can single out the unreliability of the timing chain. It stretches on a run of 120–150,000 kilometers. When using low-quality diesel fuel, the piezo injectors of the Bosch fuel system give up quite quickly, often wedges the return valve clogs periodically. It is worth noting that changing them is quite problematic. High-pressure fuel pump, EGR valve cleaning helps to bring it back to life, and DPF filter. Among the less common troubles, one can single out such a problem as cracking the crankshaft liners caused by a decrease in the performance of the oil pump, clogged with sludge. The turbine serves more than 300,000 kilometers. With timely maintenance, oil change every 7–10,000 kilometers, the engine life will exist 350,000 kilometers. Three types of gearboxes were available for the Nissan X-Trail Т31: 6-speed manual and automatic, and CVT. Most often in the secondary market there are cars with a Jetka JF011E-RE0F10A variator. This transmission works without any complaints for about 200,000 kilometers, but only under the condition of timely maintenance, replacement of the Nissan CVT fluid NS2 working fluid every 50–60,000 kilometers, and careful operation. It is necessary to avoid frequent slippage, abrupt starts at traffic lights, long movement at high speed, and it is also not recommended to tow a heavy trailer. If you pull with an oil change, over time, wear products will jam the oil pump pressure relief valve. This nuisance entails oil starvation and accelerated wear of the unit. Of the weak points of the variator, bearings of the drive and drive-in shafts can be noted, which can hum at around 120–150,000 kilometers. On the same run, there are problems with the drive belt. Replacement costs $150–100. If the belt is not replaced in a timely manner, in the future you will have to fork out for conical pulleys. Before buying, be sure to check the variator in operation. It is important that during acceleration there are no twitches and a slow reaction to pressing the gas pedal, as these are the first signs of the imminent death of the transmission. The mechanics have also proven to be quite reliable. The only thing that has to be done here periodically is to change the clutch and release bearing, on average once every 150,000 kilometers. It is not uncommon to change the dual mass flywheel at the same time as the clutch. On some copies produced after 2010, over time, there were problems with the driving discs factory mirrorage. Because of this, the clutch needs to be replaced after 50,000 kilometers of run. Nothing bad can be said about the Jetka JF613E automatic transmission. With the regular oil changes in it every 60,000 kilometers and careful operation, this transmission can do without repairs up to 250–300,000 kilometers. Reliability of the all-mode 4x4 all-wheel drive transmission largely depends on the quality of service and operating conditions of the car. If the owner understands that the Nissan X-Trail Т31 is a crossover, not an SUV, you don't have to worry about the reliability of all-wheel drive, but if the car is regularly dipped in mud, you need to be prepared for expensive repairs. So, for example, replacing the rear axle coupling will cost about $700. Also, the crosses of the cardan shaft are considered quite vulnerable. If they are broken, the movement of the car will be accompanied by a hum, knock, and vibration. It is better to change the crosses in a specialized service, since after the work it is necessary to balance the shaft, and this cannot be done qualitatively everywhere. The bearing of the front intermediate drive shaft can also boost quite early. On both axles, the second-generation Nissan X-Trail uses an independent suspension with anti-roll bars, McPherson strut front, multi-link rear. The chassis is quite soft and has a good energy intensity, making it comfortable to drive a car not only along the highway, but also for beyond its borders. But as often happens, you have to pay for comfort, not with the best handling. When driving over bumps at high speed, the car shakes a lot and unpleasant body rolls occurs in turns. Support bearing are the weak point of the front suspension. On average, their resource is 60–80,000 kilometers. On the pre-styling Nissan X-Trail, bearings often wore out without having served even 30,000 kilometers. Racks and stabilizer bushings can last up to 40–60,000 kilometers. To replace the latter, you will have to lower the subframe. Wheel bearings, ball bearings, and subframe silent blocks serve 80–120,000 kilometers. The front shock absorbers can withstand about the same amount. The rear shock absorbers can last up to 150,000 kilometers. When replacing, shock absorbers from the Renault Koleos can be used as analogs, they are cheaper. The rear suspension arms, with careful operation, take care of 150 to 100,000 kilometers. The steering system uses a power steering rack. As operating experience has shown, the rail is quite reliable, a resource of about 150,000 kilometers. But the steering shaft cardan shafts can begin to bother with extraneous sounds, creaking, knocking, without even having served 100,000 kilometers. Temporarily, silicone grease or the installation of clamps helps to solve the problem, but in the future, nevertheless, you will have to change the shaft. The bearing system is also reliable. However, on cars whose owners like to conquer all kinds of efforts, the ABS block fails quite early. A lot of hard plastic is used in the Nissan X-Trail Т31. Because of this, over the years, the interior is filled with all kinds of sounds, creaking, knocking, etc. Also, extraneous sounds can come from the fifth door. The disadvantages include poor sound insulation. The weak point of the interior electrical equipment is the heating system. For example, the motor needs to be replaced after 3 years of operation, and closer to 150,000 kilometers, you need to be ready to replace the air conditioning compressor. A fairly common problem is the rubbing of control wires and loops located on the steering wheel, the breakdown of controllers and buttons. Over time, the amplifier located at the base of the antenna oxidized, which worsened the reception of radio stations. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.